welcome into another exciting week of the Futility Rankings. I'm Adam. He's Joe. Joe, we
What's
got
up?
things off here, getting off the list, this horrible list. The Broncos shut out the Titans, and the Cardinals didn't suck quite as bad. They were playing a pretty bad team, but hey.
You've been high on the Broncos this year. They're finally showing up for you, Adam. You were right on that take. I'll give credit where credit is due.
You know, it's a good defense. It's pretty bad offense. I think that Marcus Mariota beat the Titans just as much as Denver beat the Titans, though.
No doubt. There is a lot of bad teams this year in the NFL, specifically in the AFC. It's just brutal.
Yeah, let's talk about one of them, jumping right into it. The New York Jets are number 5 this week. And, hey, not a bad number 5. Sam Darnold looked all right. And let me just jump in with a stat bomb here.
Absolutely.
They're 12.6 points per game. They're last in the league in yards, only 1,100 in their 5 games. But here comes the tricky part. Sam Darnold is averaging 257 yards per game, which could be 10th in the league in passing yards. That's actually tied with the Texans. And one player really could make that difference. Right now, if you put all the numbers together, though, they're 30th in passing yards per game. And so, they came in and they got the win over the Cowboys. But, Darnold might really be that big of a difference maker. They might not be that bad with him under the helm.
Yeah, when I was talking about it in the past weeks, I said, watch out for the Jets. Wait till Darnold gets back. And he showed up and played great this Sunday. Still a lot of questions about that Jets team, but I think they're perfectly placed at number 5.
Yeah, and I do want to throw in that the Jets beat the Cowboys. That's pretty neat. But are the Cowboys even good? Their 3 wins are against the Dolphins, the Giants, and the Redskins. A few of those teams have been on this list every week. And so, yeah, like you said, the AFC, not great, but who knows? We could see the Cowboys. I'd almost love to see it happen just because it would turn the NFL on its head.
We'll leave it at this. Jets-Cowboys on Sunday left more questions afterward than it did coming into that game. No one saw it going that way, and we'll just see what happens with the Cowboys. I don't know if they're good or they're bad. I could see it both ways.
Yeah, we certainly will find out. Moving on to number 4, the Atlanta Falcons. Joe, what are your thoughts on the Falcons?
I watched a lot of this game on Sunday, and they seem like they're starting to somewhat figure it out on offense, but it almost comes almost too late in the game when they finally start to get things clicking when they're behind, and it's just still a mess there. I just don't understand, for Dan Quinn's sake, how you go from being in the Super Bowl to coaching one of the worst teams in the NFL thus far. I just don't get the fall from grace that the Falcons have had. They have amazing players. It's one of the great examples of how a team on paper doesn't show up on the field. The way they look so good, but once the game is played, it's just terrible.
Yeah, and the numbers pretty much back up everything you said.
Yeah.
They're actually second in the league in yards per game from passing, but the defense can't stop a nosebleed. They're allowing the second most points allowed at 31. The real problem here is I think they only have 73 and a half rushing yards per game. They're still rocking that not so sexy -5 turnover differential. I feel like I say it every week with them. And they're a one-trick pony and a turnover machine. There's really not much else to say. They have a lot of talent, and that is not translated into wins.
Dan Quinn, a defensive head coach, won't be there next season, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, I agree there. Moving on to number 3, the Washington Redskins. Yeah. Hey, at least they beat the worst team in the history of the world by a point. So now you're number 3 in the futility rankings, really moving up in the world.
They tried their best to blow it. They came in, the Redskins looked good early, and then Fitzmagic got into the game, which we'll get into a little bit, and everything got turned on its head. But it was a real battle of the 2 worst teams in the NFL. I was watching Red Zone. It took them 35 minutes to cut to that game of real time before they cut to Redskins-Dolphins, which is absurd if you've ever watched the the Red Zone channel.
Yeah, certainly. Now, here's a little interesting tidbit, though. They said they were going to do a little more power run. Well, Adrian Peterson goes for over 100 yards rushing. It was against the Dolphins, so we'll see what happens against literally anyone else. But, they're still tied for 4th in giveaways, still 4th worst in the league in yards per game, and 5th in points allowed. all marks of a bad team, but hey, let's see what happens under Callahan. Kind of like the Jets. It's a bad team, but they got to win. So we got to give them a little.
I don't put them on the same playing field as the Jets.
Probably not.
They stink.
They do. They do. You're right, Joe. You're right.
Let's go on to number 2.
I'm trying to be nice.
Yeah, you're trying to be nice, but the Jets and the Redskins are on 2 different levels. Let's go on to number 2. The Cincinnati Bengals this week just lose to the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens were up early, but the Bengals did battle back. But 0-6 for the Bengals. What do you think is wrong with them, Adam?
They can't stop the run. They're allowing 184.5 rushing yards per game. That's last in the NFL. But how bad is this? So the Bengals have let up 1,107 rushing yards. No other team has let up 1,000 yet. And so they've let up about 120 yards more than the next closest team. And when you have a -5 turnover margin and 11 giveaways, all the other team really has to do is wait for you to give them the ball and then hand it to someone. So that's what's wrong with the Bengals.
Yeah, they're the one team I was holding out hope for, that maybe they weren't as bad as they had appeared, because they had close games against Buffalo and against Seattle. And I was like, maybe they'll figure it out, kind of like what's happening with Denver currently. But that's not what happened. They just continue to lose football games. I think they're going to squeak out a couple wins before the season's over, but this has a 3-13 team written all over it in Zach Taylor's first season.
Yeah, it's looking pretty bad. But hey, thank goodness for the Dolphins, who are, as you expected, number 1 on this list again, making teams like the Bengals look okay. So now they're using 2 quarterbacks?
Yeah, so they took out Josh Rosen, put in Ryan Fitzpatrick, which I guess was good for the game because the Dolphins did come back in it. But I just don't understand. One, if you're trying to lose football games, it doesn't really make sense to put Fitzpatrick in. And number 2, don't you want to see what Josh Rosen has? The one glimmer of hope. Give the kid an actual shot to be in there. He has no offensive line.
This bad of a defense. This is his chance to get some confidence, and you're going to kill that confidence pulling him.
Absolutely. It really makes no sense whatsoever. I feel bad for Josh Rosen. I do. I don't know if he's a good quarterback or not, but he definitely has not been given a fair shake either in Arizona or Miami. He has had no chance to really succeed if he does have the potential to be a good quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, and I'm not going to lie. I was a lot more sold when he was coming out of college than I am now. I thought he was going to be the best quarterback in that draft. But whether it's Fitzmagic or Rosen, it's been bad. They've combined for 3 touchdowns and 9 picks. They've been sacked 23 times so far. It's just, I feel like the word nightmare would literally be an understatement at this point for Miami.
It's a mess. I mean, they have a very good chance of going 0-16 this year. Really, I don't see any way they could beat an NFL team. I just don't see it. It's going to be a long season in Miami.
So you're saying the Bills are going to take down the Dolphins?
If there's one team from history's sake that will let the Dolphins get a victory, it'd be my Buffalo Bills. But hopefully this year is different. Hopefully.
Awesome. Anything else you want to add, my friend?
I think that's all I got this week. We pretty have a solid 5, but I see some other teams making their way in next week. There's a lot of teams that have 2 losses, that another ugly loss next week, they'll make their way into the rankings.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you next time.